Good morning, everyone. We have a guest speaker, Connor Swalm from Phin Security. Connor, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company, and let's get to talking about competing incentives that exist in vendor education. How this is harming MSPs today.
So myself, I am one of the co-founders of Phin. I'm a triplet as well. Studied math at college, trying to get like the whole rundown. And I have I don't know. I like reading. I like playing video games. That's me. My company, Phin Security, we're an awareness training platform for MSPs. So we just make it super easy for you to actually run and manage the program, so you can get back to the plethora of other activities that I know you're ignoring because you got to spend it managing awareness training.
Yeah, I wish I had you guys when I was doing awareness training. I had to develop it all from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 6 months of a year right there. So I was desperately looking for anybody who did that. That was 7 years ago. So
Yeah.
can you go back in time and release your product for me?
Well, yeah. If that book that you recommended I read that I ended up reading was was real, I'd be definitely doing that for you.
So yeah, today, I was talking to Connor, and I always try to bring good topics to the table from our friends in the field. And we have two parts we're doing here. The first one is going to be competing incentives in vendor education. And then the second part is going to be how to create a good company culture. Both things I am very passionate about, because competing incentives in vendor education. Connor, go ahead and explain that to the audience here and why it matters to MSPs.
So anytime I'm talking with a partner, or really any relationship I have, whether it's a personal relationship, a business relationship, professional or otherwise, always be aware of competing incentives. So when you're talking to a vendor in the industry as an MSP, that vendor needs you to do something. And most often it's sell more of their tool, right? They have to sell more of their tool to make more money. And that's not a negative thing, right? The vendor would not exist for you to leverage the tool if it did not result in the creation of wealth or the actual output. However, I think a lot of vendors take it too far, and I think a lot of MSPs aren't. Maybe the wool's been pulled over their eyes, or they don't want to come to the realization that maybe I'm just being told to buy more of this because they need me to sell more of this, not because it creates any more additional output for me and my partners and my clients. So it's not necessarily that vendors are malicious, and it's not necessarily that MSPs are ignorant to this at all. It's more of just always be honest and open about competing incentives. Even like, for instance, when I'm trying to sell more of Phin, it's like, what do I need you to do? Well, I need you to sell this. It's like, let's not mince the words here. If you don't buy this, or a lot of MSPs don't, we don't exist.
Yeah.
So my goal is to create something that you want to buy and then educate you to help you sell more of it. But again, I think sometimes it's just taken a little too far. And I always just try to bring attention to it.
Yeah, I do the same thing when we're selling, like, why buy Humanize IT? And my why is because I was in the corporate world and I wanted to change the way IT was done. I saw us going down this commoditization of IT, where we were just taking care of PCs for the sake of taking care of PCs and servers and hardware and software. And when I started sending my engineers along on ride-alongs or out into the call center just to talk to people, like kind of town hall style, they started changing their priorities. Like, oh, these people can't do X, Y, or Z, or this is what they're really trying to do out on the road. I can solve that problem. And then these employees got great senses of satisfaction and value, because now they were helping the business move forward. And then they never knew they could feel like that, because they were like, oh, I break and I fix things that are broken. And then they moved into, I am actually providing value to my corporation. And so that's why we built our software. It's like, we want to show value and how you, and also learn the incentives of your client so that you can help them move forward. How are you as an MSP going to help your client make more money? How are you making more money? And when you change the incentive like that, instead of I fix computers to I make money, my client makes money, how can we make money together? Now your incentive changes when you buy that next tool.
Yeah. One of the reasons why this topic is always front and center for me is a good buddy of mine, Reg Harnish, talks about this all the time, is if you ask any IT individual, but specifically MSPs, because that's who we deal with on a regular basis, how do you know you provide security to your clients? And they start that answer with, well, we sell X, Y, and Z. It's like, like you may be creating security. It's largely on accident. It's not because you had a game plan and pulled something in to help you accomplish an outcome. It's because you were sold a bill of goods that you believed provided the outcome. Very different motivations and very different results in most cases between those two.
Yeah, I mean, you could go as far to say, and this is going to make a lot of people listening mad. If you have a proper security awareness program in place and it is fully functional, you should be able to give every user admin access.
I guess philosophically, for sure. Practically, so I don't care how educated these folks are. Do not do it.
So you look at your engineers. Engineers have admin. They shouldn't have admin access on their workstations, but they do, and they're doing just fine because they're fully educated.
Yeah.
And so you'll never get end users there, right? I mean, there's decades and there's lots of research and there's a lot of like incentives on like why I'm secure. In our corporate world, we never let our admins even have access on their own workstations. You had to elevate every time you wanted to do admin access. But they knew when it was proper to elevate and when it wasn't. This is all around training.
Yeah.
And so that's the incentive. Like, well, if your incentive for security, if you consider secure, I have them absolutely locked down. Okay. Was that the goal of security?
No.
Or is the goal of security not to get breached? What is the goal of security? Is the goal of security not to leak data? To make sure that the right data is protected. And so, when you have the multiple levels of security and the reasons behind it and the different theories, but you got to be clear on what you're trying to do. Otherwise, you're gonna lose your way. You're gonna think, why do I need security awareness? My people are completely locked down. And they think, oh, I only need security awareness because cybersecurity cybersecurity insurance tells me I need to, or my compliance tells me I need to. Well, you shouldn't need compliance if you would just, figure out what your motivation is. What's your incentive on security? I don't want to get breached. So then we have zero trust models. We have training on what does a malicious email look like, because these are the most likely events to occur. And so that's where, some people say, if you buy our product, then you will be secure. And you just need to buy more of our product to be more secure. And so they've changed the equation for you. If you buy more zero trust items, you will be more secure. You don't need any education. You don't need layered security. You just need us.
Yeah. And that's where the root of the competing incentive comes in, is do not equate buying more of X as creating more of Y. That's not how that works. In this case, it's more tools creates more security. It's like, not necessarily, not even close. It's like, I'll give you a specific example from a buddy of mine, Will Brooks, who does cyber insurance at Fifth Wall Cyber Insurance, Fifth Wall Solutions, the Fifth Wall. And there is cyber insurance policies that'll ask if you have EDR, and then a bunch of MSPs will say, yeah, we use SentinelOne. It's a market leader. Thumbs up. We're good to go.
Checkbox.
And then he'll ask the question to the MSPs. It's like, is it in passive mode? And he's like, a shocking number. I'll say, yeah, absolutely. And they're like, great. This is doing nothing to create security. This is purely a checkbox. And it's, the cyber insurance policies just haven't caught up to the fact that they should ask one more layer of questions, which is great. Yeah. How is this deployed? What's your process to triage alerts? What's your SLA on timeline to do those based upon the criticality? So none of that gets asked.
Tom Lawrence was just, and I were just chatting on a thread about, do you do backups? Well, yeah. Have you tested them? How many successful restores have you done in the past 30 days? If the answer is 0, we don't know you've backed up. Backup without validation is not backup.
It is true.
And so that was a huge problem. I don't know if it's still a huge problem today, but 10 years ago, the number of clients I got panic calls from, I said, we just got crypto locked. How do we handle this? And well, when's your last good backup? I go, we back up every night. I'm like, okay, well, let's go roll back to your last one. You're going to lose about a day of work, but we'll get you there. So we start getting back and realize that their backups have not successfully completed in a year, and no one validated them. That's the job of the MSP. You should be validating these backups. And it turned out now they're going to lose a year of work, or they're going to have to pay the $10,000 or whatever the bill was that they got sit with. And it's because they lost the focus on what they were doing. The MSP said, I'm backing them up. That's what I need to do, right? What's the point of backup? So I can restore. So the job is only half complete. EDR, if it's in passive mode, yes, you have EDR, but is it doing its job? You need to test that. And some great scripts out there that'll help you test it. It's not hard to test to make sure that you are blocking, that you are preventing, that you are getting the goal done. But if you as an MSP haven't set your goal, then how do you test it? So tomorrow we're doing that tabletop with Ninja. We're doing yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
Highly recommend everybody attend that, or at least watch it once it's recorded, because it should be a fun time. But we were talking about how we could actually gamify these incentives, right? So if you play D&D, you have an encounter table over to the right of your clients. Roll the die, which one goes down? Okay, they're down because of a tree falling on the roof or something. And so then all of your engineers have to respond. How do I deal with this? And that way you find so many holes. So in the corporate world, we have time to do tabletops, and still a lot of people don't do them. Tabletops are so insightful because they help you find mismatched motivations. Okay, as a red team, that's why pen tests are so important. I, as a red team, have come in and I've tested your security, and it's crap. You had default passwords on all your core switches. I owned your network in less than 5 minutes. Oh crap, let's go change those passwords. So you change them, you set them all the same. And then the next thing they come in, they're like, yeah, we cracked one password because it was an old HP, and we found out that your password was the same on all of your switches. So it took us 10 minutes this time.
And moving in the right direction, but not nearly as fast as we need to.
But I think that's how you find out, are there competing incentives in your own MSP? So I've got a security awareness program, and then I've got an EDR or some kind of defense in depth going on. So are they working together, or are they motivating in different ways? How do these two, what is the ultimate goal of these two security platforms? Is the goal to prevent data leakage? Is the goal to prevent breach, crypto lock? And so how do you test those scenarios? Well, you can hire a pen testing company. You can run scenarios and tabletops. But what is your motivation to implement these tools so that you can solve? And in my opinion, this helps you avoid tool sprawl. Because you get to a conference and see Adam Walter behind his booth, and I say, I'm going to promise you increased profits if you go and use our software. If you sell more of our software, you make more money. And you go talk to Connor at the next booth, and he says, you buy our product, we're going to make your life easier, and we're going to make you more money. Just sell more of our product. But when you talk to both of us, do you have a why? Why do I need these tools? What are they solving for my customers? How are they helping them make money?
Yeah.
Are you asking those questions to avoid tool sprawl and to make sure that you aren't buying competing interests? I know that our tool competes on a fundamental level, just culturally, with other tools. So other tools are all about selling warranties and making sure that you're processing assets. Our tool is very focused on making service delivery better. We don't want you to sell more assets. We could care less about selling assets. And so we have competing interests culturally with other people, which is fine. But you need to know, as an MSP, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to resell more assets, or are you trying to resell more services? Now it becomes easier to pick a good tool.
Sometimes it's difficult. There's was it you and I who talked about what's the level of security you should provide for your client?
Maybe.
Do you know? So there's a math term called a supremum, and it's also referred to as the least upper bound. It's the largest element in an ordered set that's below the thing that you're approaching, essentially.
It's like, okay.
That's the way.
Zeta in Taylor series, right?
Yeah. I'll I'll refer to it as the least upper bound.
Okay.
So it's like pretend that the upper bound here is like.
I apologize to everybody out here. We have discovered we have two math geeks on the same call.
I actually hated this class where I learned this information. By the way, real analysis is a garbage math, and I'll die on that hill. So it's like, what is the level of security you should provide? And the answer is, I think it was you and I. It's like the smallest amount of security that allows people to continue to have a certain level of convenience, but also, you can convince yourself and your clients that they're actually secure. It's like, for a DoD contractor, that means something vastly different than a bakery. It's like, bakery does not need the same level of security as a DoD contractor handling things. So it's like the supremum, the place that you should be optimizing for is vastly different between every single client. But if you treat them all the same, if you sell the exact same set of tools because that's what you're taught creates security, you'll be providing mismatched levels of security for every single client.
Yeah, and I have this debate a lot. So I used to be published at SANS, CISSP, the works on security. All that knowledge is to the buy. Do not hire Adam for security anymore. Anyways, but there's always this, that's not proper security. And there's this elitism. So one of my favorite tools out there is Humanize. I love that their team. I love what they're doing. And people are like, oh, they're not real pen test. Here's what a real pen test is. And I said, oh, really? You think that's a real pen test? I come from critical infrastructure. That pen test would not pass mustard where I'm at.
Yeah.
Can you hack into my substation? Yeah. Can you give me a drone attack analysis across a wide area network grid? Where are my bright lines? Can you cross those and tell me if you can get into the SCADA systems across? No, because you're not equipped for that. And I wouldn't expect you to do a SCADA system analysis on a flower shop. They require different levels, and that's okay. You adjust based upon the needs of the client. You don't need to give them because I get this argument all the time from these well-meaning security people. Like, well, a proper pen test is, and they got this ideal in their head. And I said, a proper pen test is the one that fits the analysis of the client, the parameters of the client. What are those parameters called when you first do a pen test? The war game, the war plan, or whatever it's called. Rules of engagement. A proper pen test is the one that fits the rules of engagement for the client. You are allowed to come in and do what and try what. And so at a flower shop, I just need to make sure that they can't get through that door over there and come in and steal all my flowers. I need to make sure that my HVAC system is going to stay up and running so all of my flowers don't die. What happens if they get to your kiosk? I really don't care because it's PCI, it's connected, I can kill it in a second. But what I do care about is my plants.
Yeah. A great way that a buddy of mine, Wes Spencer, always phrased it, and one that communicates easily, directly to your client is, tell me how you make money.
Yep.
Let's start there. So in the flower shop example, it's like your flowers need to not die or get stolen. So secure that door, keep the HVAC running. And the third is, can I collect money today and not have it stolen from me? It's like, all right, we're probably 98% of the way through a really great security program for you, just through, understanding those three things.
Yeah. And that's it. We called our 2 Qs. What's your biggest source of revenue and what's your biggest risk to that revenue? And from there, you can incentivize your entire staff. So in our software, we have one field at the top of every client that says, what is their business goal? So that whether a tech is going on site or an admin, an engineer, or account manager, they're all immediately, the first thing they read is, this company is trying to grow sales by 20%. This company is trying to sell more roses this year. That way you're like, hey, why don't you do this? I'm on your side. Here's a piece of technology that could help you sell more. Why don't we give you a mobile kiosk? Like, you do that flower show every year, but you have to wait till you come back to your desk to sell. What if I could give you a way to do it with Square where you could buy right now, process payments on site? That's ubiquitous now, but 5 years ago, that was hard to find.
Yeah.
I'm constantly giving advice when I'm at concerts or big trade shows where you've got that poor vendor out there selling pretzels. and they're trying to swipe their card through, and they're
Doesn't
sitting there
work.
waiting because there are 100,000 people at this event competing for that cell tower you're using. And if you would use something a little bit different, you could bypass that. So Starlink or something similar, you could bypass that and you could be selling food like crazy while the rest of the vendors struggle to process credit cards. How much did that increase your sales? Did it increase it by more than $300? Because that's all that system cost. And so I'm constantly thinking, this is what MSPs should be doing. Not selling more equipment because it's in your stack, but solving problems for your client. And I think that is, in my opinion, that's going to want that's my final phrase. And I'll let you finish up here, Connor. But to avoid competing incentives, you need to understand your why. Why are you doing this? Why is your client doing this? And if you know that, you can avoid these competing things. Also, why is your vendor doing this?
Yeah.
Connor, final words.
I mean, in a weird way, calling it out as a vendor too makes people trust you. So it's like even that competing incentive people should be aware of. It's like, sometimes I tell people, it's like, oh, why did you do that? It's like, well, I knew exactly how that was going to play out. I knew exactly how being that transparent about how we screwed up in this way, or being that transparent about how we're motivated internally to make more money. I know exactly what that's going to do to the public when they see that. It's going to cause them to trust me. So it's like, even that you should be aware of. It's like, I'm saying this not only because I believe it's true, but also because I want you to trust me, because at the end of the day, I want you to listen to me because I think I'm telling you the right things. So the last words on this that I would say, when somebody is talking in the same way that I do, but they're not receptive to competing beliefs, like they won't have that discussion. Criticism doesn't just fall off their back, right? They get really upset. And they view it as an attack on themselves. You should run for the hills. So it's like, you can't speak this confidently about things. You can't speak as if you were the arbiter of like a better decision to make, and then also not accept a competing belief, because then you just end up, existing in an echo chamber and, not believing that your own farts smell or some shit like that.
Yeah. I usually tell people, like, look, here's our culture and here's what we're trying to accomplish. It may not be your best fit for you. Here's another culture fit. And I would say, check us both out and see which one's going to work for you, because we both are trying to accomplish the same thing in the end. We're just doing it a different way, and we want to be a good fit.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, Connor. I'm looking forward to the next topic coming up here on how to actually create a good culture within your company.
Yeah.
So thank you, Connor. We'll see you then.
See you next time.